The night the secret began to breathe, the moon did not shine bright. It hung low over Lukaya village, pale and weak, like an old eye watching in silence. The wind moved slowly through the tall grass of the savannah, brushing against mud houses and carrying the smell of dust, firewood, and coming rain. Somewhere far away, a drum beat once, then stopped. Inside a small clay house at the edge of the village sat Naima. She was a black woman with deep eyes that held too many nights of waiting. Her hair was tied back with a faded red cloth. Firelight danced on her face, showing the lines of pain and strength carved by years of quiet struggle. In her arms, a sleeping child breathed softly. The child's name was Kito. Naima looked down at him as he slept. His chest rose and fell. His small fingers curled around her cloth as if afraid she might disappear. Each breath he took pulled at her heart like a rope. Outside, the wind grew louder. Naima closed her eyes, but the past refused to sleep. 5 years ago, she had loved a man named Jabori. Jabori was a hunter. Tall. Proud. His voice was strong like a drum, and his laughter once filled her days with light. He had promised her a home, a future, and children who would run through the village calling his name. But Jabori loved freedom more than truth. When Naima told him she carried his child, his eyes changed. Fear entered them like a shadow at sunset. 2 days later, he left the village, saying the forest called him to distant lands. He never returned. No message. No farewell. Only silence. Naima swallowed hard and opened her eyes. The fire crackled. Sparks rose and vanished into smoke. Outside, an owl cried, a sound elders said meant secrets were awake. She gently laid Kito on a woven mat and stood. Her knees trembled. Tonight was not an ordinary night. She could feel it in her bones. Earlier that day, Elder Zuberi, the oldest man in Lukaya, had sent for her. When elders called your name, you did not ignore it. Naima wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and stepped outside. The village paths glowed faintly from small oil lamps. Children were already asleep. Dogs lay still. Even the insects seemed to listen. At the center of the village, beneath the great baobab tree, the elders waited. Their faces were carved with time. White ash marked their foreheads. A small fire burned between them, and the smoke rose straight into the sky, another sign. Smoke that did not bend meant truth demanded to be spoken. Elder Zuberi lifted his staff as Naima approached. Naima, daughter of Omori, he said slowly. Sit. She sat on the cool earth, her heart pounding like distant drums. The ancestors have spoken, Elder Zuberi continued. They whisper through dreams, through wind, through restless children. Naima's breath caught. What do they say? She asked softly. Elder Zuberi looked into the fire. They say a child walks among us whose blood is hidden. A child tied to a broken oath. The fire popped loudly. Naima's hands shook. She knew the elders were speaking of Kito. Before she could speak, Elder Naya, the oldest woman, leaned forward. Her eyes were sharp despite her age. Secrets rot the land, Naya said. When truth is buried, rivers dry, animals flee, and families tear apart. The wind blew harder, lifting ash into the air. Elder Zuberi turned his gaze back to Naima. The father of this child must be told. The words struck her like thunder. Naima bowed her head. The father left, she said. He does not want to know. That is not his choice anymore, Elder Naya replied. The ancestors demand balance. Naima's chest burned. Fear wrapped around her like cold water. She had protected Kito all these years. She had worked, endured whispers, and swallowed shame to keep him safe. Now the past was knocking. Where is the man? Elder Zuberi asked. Naima hesitated, then spoke. Jabori returned. The elders murmured. He came back 3 days ago, she continued. He now lives in Riverstone Village, across the hills. He has a wife. A respected one. Silence fell heavy. Elder Naya closed her eyes. Then the storm is already here. That night, Naima could not sleep. She lay beside Kito, listening to the wind howl through the cracks in the walls. In her dreams, she saw water turning black, drums beating without hands, and a child standing between two worlds. She woke before dawn, sweat cold on her skin. Outside, the sky was red like fresh clay. The journey to Riverstone village would take one full day through forest and hills. Naima packed dried yams, water, and wrapped Quito on her back with cloth. As she stepped onto the path, the village seemed to hold its breath. At the forest edge, she stopped. Tall trees rose like silent guards. The air smelled of wet leaves and old earth. Somewhere deep inside, something moved. She felt watched. Naima, a voice whispered. She turned, but no one stood there. The wind brushed her ear again. Truth has teeth. Her heart raced. She hurried forward. As she walked, memories followed her like shadows. Jabari's smile. His promises. His back as he walked away. Each step felt heavier than the last. By midday, drums echoed faintly from Riverstone village. Smoke curled into the sky. Laughter floated on the air. A village alive with joy. Naima stopped at the hilltop. Below her, she saw Jabari. He stood tall near the river, laughing with others, wearing fine cloth. Beside him stood a woman, his wife, beautiful and proud. Naima's hands tightened around the cloth holding Quito. "This is the day," she whispered. The wind answered with a long, low cry. And far away, unseen by human eyes, the ancestors leaned closer. Because once a secret is spoken, nothing remains the same. Naima stood on the hill for a long time, watching Riverstone village move like a living spirit below her. The river curved around the land like a silver snake. Palm trees bent in the wind. Smoke rose from cooking fires, and the steady beat of drums traveled through the air, deep and welcoming. But her heart did not feel welcome. Quito stirred on her back and made a soft sound. Naima reached up and touched his small hand. His skin was warm. Real. He was the truth she carried, and also the danger. She began to walk down the hill. With every step, memories pulled at her feet. The forest behind her whispered warnings. The ancestors had pushed her forward, but fear still clung to her spirit like wet cloth. As she entered the village, eyes turned toward her. Riverstone was larger than Lucaya. Its houses were stronger, its people better dressed. Children ran freely, laughing. Women pounded grain in rhythm, their pestles rising and falling like a dance. The drums grew louder. At the center of the village stood a wide open space near the riverbank. A gathering had begun. Elders sat in a half circle. Warriors stood nearby with spears resting against their shoulders. This was no ordinary day. Naima slowed her steps. She saw Queen Amora, the wife of Jabari. Amora's beauty was calm and sharp like morning light. She wore blue beads around her neck and a crown of woven gold grass. Her posture showed respect and authority. The people listened when she spoke. The river itself seemed to flow softer near her feet. Naima's chest tightened. She does not know, Naima thought. None of them know. Before Naima could turn away, a child pointed. "Mother, look," the child said. "That woman carries a baby." Several heads turned. Whispers rose like insects at night. Naima felt her throat dry. She adjusted Quito on her back and walked forward. Her feet touched the cool sand near the river. The drums slowed. Then she heard his voice. "Naima." Jabari turned. Time stopped. His face still held the same strong lines, but his eyes widened in shock. The smile faded from his lips like a dying fire. For a moment, he did not move. Then he stepped forward. "What are you doing here?" Jabari asked. His voice was low, tight. Naima looked at him without speaking. Her eyes held pain, anger, and a strength he did not remember. "I came because the ancestors would not let me rest," she finally said. Jabari glanced around. People were watching now. Queen Amora's gaze followed him, sharp and questioning. "This is not the place," Jabari muttered. "We will speak later." Naima shook her head. Later has already destroyed enough. The drums stopped. Silence fell like a heavy cloth. Queen Amora stepped forward. "Who is this woman, my husband?" she asked calmly. Jabari swallowed. "She is from my past." Naima felt fire rise in her chest. "I am from your truth." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Queen Amora's eyes moved to the child on Na'ima's back. She studied Keto carefully. The way his nose curved. The shape of his brow. Something flickered across her face. "What is your name?" Amora asked. "Na'ima, daughter of Omori," Na'ima replied. "And the child?" Na'ima lifted her chin. "His name is Keto." The river murmured softly. One of the elders cleared his throat. "This gathering was called to honor the ancestors," he said. "If spirits walk among us today, they must be heard." The wind rose suddenly. Palm leaves rattled. Dust lifted from the ground. Elder Makori, a man known for speaking hard truths, pointed his staff at Jabori. "Hunter," he said, "do you recognize this child?" Jabori's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His eyes met Na'ima's. In them, she saw fear. Not of shame, but of consequence. "No," Jabori said. "I do not." The lie fell heavy. At that moment, Keto began to cry. His cry cut through the silence like a blade. High. Sharp. Full of hunger and pain. Na'ima turned slightly, rocking him. "Hush, my son," she whispered. But the cry did not stop. Queen Amora stepped closer. "Why does this child cry so fiercely?" she asked. Na'ima met her gaze. "Because children know truth before words." A murmur spread. Elder Makori struck his staff into the sand. "Lies anger the ancestors." The sky darkened slightly as clouds moved across the sun. Jabori raised his voice. "This woman seeks to bring shame to my house," he said. "She appears with a child and accusations." Na'ima felt her knees weaken, but she did not fall. "I seek no house," she said. "I seek balance." She untied the cloth and turned Keto slightly so the people could see his face. Gasps echoed. The resemblance was clear. The same eyes. The same jaw. Queen Amora's breath caught. She stepped back, one hand pressed against her chest. Her voice trembled. "Jabori, tell me the truth." Jabori looked around. The warriors. The elders. The river. The sky. Still, he said nothing. That was when the river changed. The water swirled violently. A cold wind swept across the village. The drums, untouched, began to beat slowly on their own. Boom. 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 The elders stood in fear. "The ancestors are angry," Elder Makori whispered. A voice rose from the river, deep and ancient. "The blood has been denied." People fell to their knees. Queen Amora stared at Jabori with wide eyes. "What have you done?" she asked. Jabori finally dropped to the ground. His strength broke like dry wood. "It is my son," he cried. "I was afraid." The drums stopped. Silence returned, heavier than before. Na'ima closed her eyes. Tears slid down her face. Not of joy. Not of victory. But of grief for what truth costs. The elders exchanged looks. "This is not finished," Elder Makori said. "Truth revealed is only the beginning." Queen Amora turned away from Jabori, her face hard with pain and pride. Na'ima knew then, this journey would not end with words. It would end with sacrifice. The morning after the gathering, Riverstone Village lay under a heavy, grey sky. Clouds churned above, dark as the secrets buried in the earth. The river ran thick with mud, and the drums in the village square beat a slow, sorrowful rhythm, as though mourning the balance disturbed the day before. Na'ima sat near the riverbank, Keto wrapped securely on her back. The child had not stopped crying all night, and she felt the weight of truth pressing down like stones in her chest. Beside her, Jabori knelt on the sand, staring at the water. His head hung low, as if the river had pulled all the pride from his body. I never wanted this," Jabori whispered, his voice trembling. "I left because I was afraid. Afraid of what people would say, afraid of the shame." His words faded into the wind, leaving a silence heavy enough to crush hearts. Na'ima watched him carefully. She could see the man he had become, broken, yet still holding the remnants of the proud hunter he had once been. "Fear is a dangerous companion," she said softly. "It can make a man blind to the children waiting for him, blind to the truth that will find him anyway." Jabari looked up, meeting her gaze. The first glimmer of something human, remorse, shone in his eyes. I don't know how to fix this, he admitted. I thought, maybe it was safer to forget. You cannot forget what walks beside you, Naima replied, tightening the cloth that held Quito. The ancestors remind us that children are never hidden, even when men wish them to be. Quito is your son. Not mine, not the village's. Yours. And your choices matter. Jabari swallowed hard, his throat dry. He reached out, hesitant, as though the air itself might reject him. Can I see him? Naima hesitated. She had spent 5 years protecting Quito from the world, especially from Jabari, but something in his voice trembled like the first rain of the season. Slowly, she shifted the child forward, letting him peek at his father. Quito's eyes widened, dark and luminous, as if recognizing the soul before recognizing the face. He reached out a tiny hand. Jabari froze, then knelt fully, holding his breath. I am your father, he said, voice breaking. Quito's cry cut him off. But this time, it was not fear. It was demand. The child wanted the truth, wanted the bond that had been denied him. Jabari held his arms out, and Naima stepped back, heart pounding. The village, which had watched the confrontation the day before, now whispered among themselves. The elders had gathered silently behind her, their faces grave but expectant. Even Queen Amora, standing at a distance, observed with a mixture of anger, fear, and curiosity. Suddenly, the wind shifted. It swept across the river, rustling the palm leaves, bending the reeds, and carrying a faint, eerie hum. The elders muttered under their breath. The spirits are restless, Elder Makori said, gripping his staff. The balance is not yet restored. Blood denied awakens shadows. Jabari's face went pale. Shadows? He asked. The truth, Elder Makori replied, voice low and grave, awakens what men fear most. Denial feeds them. Courage can bind them. Naima felt a shiver crawl down her spine. She had seen signs before, nights of restless wind, the river that ran black, shadows that moved without source. The ancestors were patient, but they did not forgive. Quito, sensing the tension, began to wail again. But this cry was different, it carried something ancient, primal. Naima and Jabari exchanged a glance, and in that moment, both understood. The child was not only a bridge to the father he had never known, but also a key to the forces that had long watched over the village. Jabari knelt fully now, holding his hands open. I will not run from him, he said, voice steadying. Tell me what I must do. Elder Zuberi stepped forward from the group of elders, his staff tapping lightly against the ground. First, you must confront the shadows, he said. The secrets you left behind are not gone. They linger in the forest, in the mountains, in the waters. If you wish to honor your child, you must face them. Only then can you walk as a father without the weight of fear. What shadows? Jabari asked, fear creeping back into his voice. Elder Naya, the oldest woman, stepped closer. Her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, held his gaze. The shadows of lies and denial. They will follow you, test you. They will demand courage, honesty, and sacrifice. Do not think this is an easy path. Few survive its truth. Naima felt a knot in her stomach tighten. She had known this journey would not be simple. She had feared the very day when the child's blood would demand justice. And now it was here. Suddenly, a cry erupted from the forest edge. Birds scattered, their wings cutting the grey sky. The elders fell silent. Jabari turned toward the sound. Naima followed, heart racing. From the shadows of the trees, a figure emerged. Tall, cloaked in dark fabric that seemed to shimmer in the dim light, the figure's face was hidden. But the air around it felt charged, almost alive. The spirits, Elder Makori whispered. They come to test the courage of the father and the child. Jabari stepped forward, fists clenched, while Naima held Quito close. The figure raised a hand, and the wind seemed to obey, swirling around them, carrying whispers of forgotten names and unspoken truths. Who are you? Jabari demanded, voice firm despite trembling inside. The figure spoke, voice deep and echoing like water in a cavern. I am the shadow of what was hidden. The blood denied, the promise broken. Step forward, Father, and claim what you left behind. Jabari's knees buckled for a moment, but he straightened, taking a deep breath. I am here, he said. I will not run. The shadow moved closer, and the air turned cold. Kito's cry intensified, almost as if calling for courage, calling for the bond to be acknowledged. Naima felt the child's small body trembling against her. Elder Zuberi stepped forward, raising his staff. The path will be dangerous, he warned. But it is the only way. The father must walk with the child into the forest of truth, where shadows reveal all. Jabari looked at Naima, eyes full of fear, hope, and shame. Will you come with me? He asked. Naima nodded slowly. I will. But remember, this journey is not only yours. It is for Kito, for the child who deserves truth. The shadow receded slightly, as if acknowledging their resolve. The forest awaited. The drums of the village fell silent, replaced by the distant, haunting cry of the wind. And in that moment, Naima understood. The path forward would uncover more than secrets. It would awaken ancient forces, challenge hearts, and demand sacrifices none of them could yet imagine. The trio, Naima, Jabari, and Kito, stepped toward the forest, leaving the river and village behind. The shadows moved with them. And the ancestors watched, waiting for the moment when truth would either bind them together, or tear them apart. The forest swallowed them whole. Its trees rose like ancient sentinels, their trunks thick and twisted, roots gnarled and grasping at the earth. The air was damp, scented with moss and decay, and every step Naima and Jabari took seemed to awaken creatures hidden in shadow. Birds with black feathers and eyes like fire watched silently from the branches. Insects hummed a low, vibrating warning. Kito stirred on Naima's back, his small hand clutching her shoulder. Mother, the forest is speaking, he whispered, his voice small but urgent. Naima's heart tightened. She had known that the child was no ordinary being. Even at 5, Kito carried something older than the mountains themselves. Yes, my son, she said softly. The forest hears all. And it tests all who enter. Jabari walked beside them, his spear in hand, though it seemed useless against the invisible forces pressing on them. His face was pale, sweat streaked with dirt, and his chest heaved with every step. I don't know if I am ready, he admitted. You are ready because you have no choice, Naima replied. Her voice was steady, though inside her own fear coiled like a serpent. The ancestors demand courage, not comfort. They walked deeper, the trees thickening. Light filtered in thin beams through the canopy, creating patches of gold on the dark forest floor. Somewhere above, a hawk cried, and the sound echoed like a drumbeat. Suddenly, a shadow flitted between the trees. Jabari swung his spear, but there was nothing there. Only leaves shaking, though the wind was still. Kito's eyes widened. The shadow waits, he said. It knows father's fear. Jabari swallowed hard. I see it, he whispered. I feel it. The forest seemed to lean closer, pressing them together, forcing them to confront not only the shadows in the woods, but the shadows within themselves. Naima's thoughts drifted to the past, the betrayal, the years of silence, the nights she had spent whispering lullabies to a child who would never know his father. Ahead, the ground dropped into a small clearing. The air was thick and heavy, smelling of wet earth and old secrets. In the center of the clearing stood a stone altar, covered in moss and carved with symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. Elder Makori's voice rang in Naima's memory. The father must walk with the child into the forest of truth, where shadows reveal all. Jabari took a step forward, but the shadow appeared again, darker this time, solid and shifting like smoke. It circled him, moving closer with each heartbeat. Its form was jagged, almost human, but its eyes glowed with a cold, ancient fire. Jabari's knees buckled. I cannot, he started, but Naima grabbed his arm. You can, she said sharply. Your fear has kept this child in darkness. Face it, now. The shadow hissed, a sound like wind through dead leaves. It surged forward, and Jabari raised his spear instinctively. But Kito laughed, a sound so pure it cut through the forest's heavy tension. "Father!" Quito cried, stepping forward in Naima's arms. "Do not run. Face it." The shadow recoiled slightly at the sound of his voice. Naima's breath caught. The child's words held power, old, spiritual power. Quito's small body was trembling, but his eyes blazed with light. Jabari dropped his spear. He stepped toward Quito, then toward the shadow. "I am here," he said, voice strong despite the fear. "I accept you. I accept the truth of my child. I will not deny him anymore." The shadow stopped. For a moment, it was still, as if weighing his heart. Then it shifted and dissolved into the mist, leaving behind a faint glow that moved like fire along the forest floor. Jabari sank to the ground, chest heaving, tears streaking his dirt-covered face. Naima knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have taken the first step," she said softly. "But the forest tests more than courage. It tests honesty, sacrifice, and love." Quito clung to his father, and for the first time, Jabari truly looked at his son. The resemblance was undeniable. The same dark eyes, the same high cheekbones, the same small, determined mouth. And in that moment, the father understood the weight of his absence. "I have wronged you, my son," Jabari whispered. "I have been blind. I am sorry." Quito pressed his forehead to Jabari's chest. "I forgive you," he said simply. "But you must never hide again." The forest responded. A wind rose, gentle but insistent, carrying the smell of rain and wildflowers. The branches swayed as if bowing, and a soft light spread across the clearing, illuminating the stone altar. Symbols glowed brighter now, humming with energy. Elder Zuberi's voice echoed in Naima's mind. "Balance is restored when truth and courage walk together. But shadows will always test hearts, even after light returns." Naima took a deep breath. She knew they were not finished. The shadow's presence had revealed something deeper, something tied not only to Jabari's fear, but to the history of their families. Suddenly, a low growl came from the forest edge. A pair of golden eyes appeared, glowing in the dim light. A leopard, massive and silent, stepped into the clearing. Its fur shimmered, marked with patterns that seemed to move and shift like water. The child gasped. "The guardian," Quito whispered. "It comes to judge the heart of the father." Jabari swallowed. He had hunted many animals, but this was different. This was not flesh and blood. This was spirit. The leopard's gaze pierced him, looking into his soul, weighing his intentions, his remorse, his love for Quito. Naima stood, placing herself slightly between Jabari and the leopard. "Show respect," she whispered. "Fear will not protect you here. Honesty will." Jabari knelt slowly, bowing his head. "I offer truth," he said. "I offer my heart. I seek forgiveness, not just from my son, but from the spirits who have been wronged." The leopard circled them, silent except for the soft whisper of its paws on the ground. Finally, it stopped before Quito, sniffed the air, and then sat down, calm and regal. It turned its head to Jabari, eyes steady, and in that gaze, Jabari felt acceptance. The child smiled faintly, exhausted but proud. "Father," Quito said, "you are learning." Naima exhaled, relief flooding through her. But she knew the forest had tested only part of their hearts. Deeper challenges awaited, and the journey back to the village would not be easy. For the first time in 5 years, Jabari held Quito close, tears falling freely. Naima stood beside them, watching, knowing that the path of truth was far from over, but that tonight they had faced the heart of fear and survived. The wind whispered again, through trees, across the river, and into the hearts of all three. It carried a promise. The past could be confronted. The future could be healed. But only if courage and honesty walked together. And as the first raindrops fell, the forest seemed to breathe with them, alive, watching, waiting for the final steps that would either bind their family or shatter it forever. The sky had darkened fully, heavy with storm clouds that rolled over the mountains like restless spirits. Rain began to fall in cold sheets, drumming on the leaves above and turning the forest floor into a river of mud. Naima, Jabari, and Quito pressed forward, their feet slipping in the wet earth, hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and resolve. "This is the final test," Naima said, her voice barely audible over the roar of the storm. "The ancestors will not allow the truth to remain unproven. Every lie, every hidden thing, will rise tonight." Jabari's spear was gripped tightly in one hand, but he no longer carried fear in the same way. Instead, he carried responsibility, the weight of the years he had denied, and the need to protect Quito. "I am ready," he said, voice steady despite the trembling of his limbs. "Show me what must be faced." The forest around them seemed alive, bending and twisting as the storm raged. Lightning flashed, illuminating twisted branches like jagged fingers, and thunder shook the earth beneath their feet. Shadows darted between the trees, forming shapes of long-forgotten ancestors, hunters, and spirits of the land. Each shape whispered accusations, each step of the travelers answered with courage, or faltered under fear. A sudden shriek split the air. From the depths of the forest emerged figures cloaked in mist, faces half hidden, eyes glowing like embers. The shadows of the past had taken form, betrayals, lies, and secrets that had waited years to confront them. Naima could feel the spirits of her family, Jabari's family, and even the village ancestors circling them, demanding truth. Quito clutched his father's arm, tiny fists pressing against him. "Father, you must speak," the child said. "Do not hide. They will know if you lie." Jabari knelt in the mud, rain soaking through his clothes, and opened his mouth. I left her. I left her alone. I left my son alone. I was afraid of shame, afraid of responsibility, afraid of everything," he confessed, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the rain. "I was wrong. I am wrong. Naima. Quito. I swear to you, I will not hide again." The shadows paused. They moved closer, circling, but there was a shift in the air. Their anger, sharp and biting, softened slightly. Naima felt a tug at her heart. "The truth is not enough if it is not carried with action," she said. "You must prove it. The storm will not release us until balance is restored." Lightning struck a tall tree nearby, and it split in half, flames licking the wet wood. The shadows recoiled at the light, hissing, writhing like snakes. From the fire, a figure emerged, an old woman, cloaked in white, her eyes the color of moonlight. "The blood of a child cannot be denied," she said, voice echoing like rolling thunder. "And the heart of a father cannot remain hidden. You must choose. Will you claim your family, or let fear rule?" Jabari stepped forward, rain pouring down his face, mixing with mud. "I claim them. I claim my son. I claim the truth of my actions. I will no longer run from what I must face." The shadows screamed in fury but began to dissipate, leaving trails of silver mist that rose into the stormy sky. The fire from the fallen tree illuminated the clearing, reflecting in Quito's wide, trusting eyes. "You have taken the first step," the old woman said. "But the journey of the heart is ongoing. Fear will always return if love is absent. Remember this, courage without love is empty." She raised her hands, and the rain stilled, the wind softened, and the shadows disappeared completely. Quito laughed, a bright, victorious sound that rang like bells. "Father," he shouted, running to Jabari. He pressed his small face into his father's chest. Jabari hugged him tightly, the years of absence melting away in that embrace. Naima stepped forward, letting a smile touch her lips for the first time in years. "You have faced the storm," she said. "Now you must face the world. The village, your wife, and all who watched, they will need truth, courage, and honesty as much as you do." Jabari nodded. "I am ready," he said. "For Quito, for Naima, and for the life I should have lived." From the forest, a soft hum rose, like a chorus of unseen spirits. The rain slowed to a gentle drizzle. Trees swayed, leaves sparkling with raindrops like diamonds. The storm had passed, leaving only the scent of wet earth and renewal. They turned back toward the village path, trudging through mud and fallen branches. Jabari held Quito on his shoulders now, the child laughing and pointing at the river and trees. Naima walked beside them, her heart lighter, but aware that the next steps would not be easy. Riverstone Village came into view, quiet and watchful. Queen Amora stood at the edge, her expression unreadable, arms crossed. Jabari stopped, took a deep breath, and stepped forward. Amora, he said, voice calm but filled with humility. I have returned, not as the man who left, but as the man who will no longer hide. I seek forgiveness, not only for myself, but for my son. Amora's gaze softened slightly, though anger still lingered. Words are easy, Jabari, she said. But actions will show if your truth is strong. I understand, he replied. And I will show it. For Quito, for Naima, for all of us. The villagers, who had gathered at a distance to watch, whispered among themselves. The elders approached, their faces solemn but approving. The storm has passed, Elder Makori said. But remember, truth is a journey, not a destination. Courage and love must guide every step. Quito looked up at his father. Will we be together now? He asked. Jabari knelt, brushing rain from his son's hair. Yes, my son. We will be together. No more hiding, no more running. I promise. Naima watched them, her heart swelling with relief and cautious hope. The forest had tested them, revealing fear, shame, and hidden truths. The storm had demanded honesty, courage, and action. And they had survived it together. Lightning flashed once more, briefly illuminating the horizon, and in that light, Naima felt the presence of the ancestors surrounding them. They had watched, guided, and tested, and now they blessed this family, though the journey of trust and healing would continue. Jabari, Naima, and Quito took the first steps back into the village, side by side, ready to face whatever judgment, forgiveness, and reconciliation awaited them. The storm had ended, but its lessons would remain in their hearts forever. The dawn broke over Riverstone Village like a promise. Golden light spilled over the river, catching the edges of palm fronds and reflecting on the wet mud of the path where Naima, Jabari, and Quito had returned. Birds sang tentatively, as if unsure whether the storm had truly passed. The forest behind them was silent, watching, holding its breath. Naima carried Quito in her arms now. The child's laughter rang out, bright and free, chasing away the remnants of fear and sorrow. Jabari walked beside them, shoulders straight, eyes clear. He had faced shadows, storms, and the consequences of his past, and now he stood fully accountable. The villagers had gathered, murmuring in the warm light. Women brought fresh water, children peeked from behind their mothers, and elders watched with wise, patient eyes. Even Queen Amora stood apart, her gaze sharp but not unkind. She held herself with dignity, waiting to see whether Jabari's words and actions would match the courage he had shown in the forest. Jabari stepped forward, kneeling before the elders. I return to you not only as a husband, but as a father, he said, voice firm. I have wronged my child. I have wronged my family. I have lived in fear, but I will no longer hide from truth or responsibility. I seek your guidance, your judgment, and your forgiveness. The elders whispered among themselves. Elder Zuberi stepped forward, staff in hand. Courage is shown not by words alone, but by deeds, he said. A man who faces his past and seeks balance honors both the living and the ancestors. You have begun that path. Let your actions complete it. Naima looked at him, her heart both wary and hopeful. And the child? She asked. Does he find a place in your heart, Jabari, beyond the fear that once ruled you? Jabari knelt fully, opening his arms. Quito ran to him, climbing onto his shoulders, and Jabari held him tightly. My son, he said, voice thick with emotion, I will never leave you again. You are my blood, my responsibility, my heart. Nothing will take that away. A hush fell over the village as the elders nodded, Queen Amora included. The woman's expression softened. She stepped forward, placing a hand on Jabari's shoulder. Your courage has been tested, she said. But the heart must also show humility, respect, and protection. Do not forget that. Jabari bowed his head. I will not forget, he promised. Naima felt tears prick her eyes. For years, she had carried the burden of this secret alone, navigating fear, shame, and the judgment of others. And now, standing in the morning sun, she saw the possibility of healing, not just for herself, but for Quito, and even for Jabari. The village gathered closer, and the elders lifted their hands, signaling the beginning of a small ceremony. A fire was lit, smoke curling upward in spirals, carrying prayers to the ancestors. The drums began to beat, slow and rhythmic, echoing through the hearts of all present. It was a sound of life, of renewal, of connection. Elder Naya spoke softly, her voice carrying over the crackle of fire. Families are bound not only by blood, but by courage, honesty, and the willingness to face truth. Today, one child who was hidden has been claimed. One father who denied his heart has returned. One mother who carried the weight of secrets has found balance. Naima held Kito close, watching as he laughed and clapped at the rhythm of the drums. "Do you see?" she whispered to Jabari. "The child forgives freely, because love never waits for permission." Jabari's voice was low, full of reverence. "I understand now. I cannot change the years I lost, but I can shape the years ahead. I will honor him, protect him, and love him without hesitation." Kito jumped down from his father's shoulders, running to Naima's side, then back to Jabari, spinning between them like sunlight caught in a dance. His laughter was a bridge, connecting past, present, and future. The elders nodded in approval, and the villagers joined in celebration, their voices blending with the wind, the river, and the forest. The storm of truth had passed, leaving clarity in its place. Queen Amora watched from a distance, her expression contemplative. She understood now that life's tests were not about punishment, but about growth. "This is a lesson for all of us," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. The ancestors had observed, silent but present. Naima felt their presence in the warmth of the sun, in the wind brushing against her skin, in the soft laughter of Kito. She knew they had approved. Finally, Elder Makori spoke, his voice carrying wisdom carved from decades of life. "Let this day be remembered," he said. "A secret revealed can bring fear and chaos, but if met with courage, honesty, and love, it can restore what was lost. Families may break, but they can also be remade, stronger and wiser than before. Remember this: the truth, though heavy, always carries the seed of life and hope." Naima took a deep breath, letting the warmth of the morning fill her lungs. She looked at Jabari, then at Kito. "We are not perfect," she said. "But we are together. And together, we are stronger than any shadow, any secret, any fear." Jabari nodded. "And I will spend every day proving it." Kito laughed again, running toward the river. The water sparkled in the sunlight, dancing like the spirit of the forest itself. Naima followed, lifting him in her arms as they watched Jabari step into the shallow water, smiling, the father he was meant to be. The villagers clapped, drums beating, voices singing in celebration of life, truth, and reconciliation. Even the forest seemed to join them, the leaves rustling in rhythm, birds calling in harmony, and the wind carrying the promise of protection and blessing. As they stood there, side by side, Naima realized that the past had been heavy, but the future was theirs to shape. No more secrets, no more hiding. Only honesty, courage, and love to guide them. The day ended with the sun high above, glinting on the river, lighting the village, and warming the hearts of all who had witnessed the power of truth. Kito ran through the fields, Jabari following, and Naima smiled, finally feeling peace. And from the whispers of the wind and the soft rustle of the trees, the lesson remained clear. The truth may frighten, and secrets may wound, but courage, honesty, and love have the power to heal. Face the shadows of the past, embrace responsibility, and the family, and your soul, will be made whole.